Good morning, everybody. Mrs. Thompson here. I hope you are all well and welcome to today's maths lesson. So the first thing we are going to do this morning is get our books all set up and ready to go, and then we're going to put them to one side and do some brain warm-ups. So I'm going to show you the date and the learning objective, what we are trying to learn today. I'd like you to pause the video and get your book all set up so that you're ready for today's lesson. Okay? Okay, so you should have your book all set up and ready to go. But before we get going with our converting units of measure, we are going to do a quick activity or two just to warm up our brains. Now, I'd like you ideally to do this in your home learning exercise book, but you can also do this on a scrap piece of paper. So, are you ready? It's quick fire and it's a little bit trickier than yesterday. Let's go. So, I would like you to start with the answer to 7 times 7. 7 times 7. And now I would like you to add the answer to 8 times 8. The answer that you got, I would like you to subtract that from 200. Now, whatever your answer was to the last part, I'd like you to multiply it by 5. I'm going to give you a little bit longer for this step. If you want to pause the video, feel free. And finally, I would like you to add 2 to your answer. Okay, and you should have the answer 437. So I'm going to show you now, just in case you were thinking, Mrs. Thompson, how did you get that answer? I'm going to show you how I did it. So if you struggled with that part, and it was quite tricky today, then you can follow my explanations, and hopefully you'll be able to spot any areas that you thought, that's where I went wrong. So here's what I did. I started with 7 times 7 and it gave me the answer 49. Now, if you struggled with your times tables there, you could use your tabling up or your times table songs to help you, just like we do in class. So I know that 7 times 7 is 49, and I also know that 8 times 8 is 64. So I took those numbers, 49 and 64, and I added them together, and I got the answer 113. You can see here that I've used the formal written method of addition. We call that the column method sometimes. So the next step was that I had to subtract from 200. Now this was quite tricky because I had to do lots of borrowing because I've got my placeholders here. So I did 200, take away 113, and I got the answer 87. And then I multiplied it by 5. Now we did this in our maths lesson the other day. And when I multiplied by 5, I did 5 times 7, which is 35. And then I did 5 times 8, which is 40. And I added on my 3. So I got the answer 437. 435. And finally, the last instruction was to add 2. So here I go. I've done 435, add 2, and that is how I got to my answer, 437. Okay, now I've got some more questions that I'm going to put on the screen for you now, and I will show you the answers. It's a bit like another brain warm-up that we quite often do in class. And today I'm going to be asking you to divide by 100 and divide by 10. So I've got some tips there on the screen to help you. Now remember, when we're in class, we have our place value grid and we move our numbers across, don't we? And we count how many placeholders we've got. Okay, so I want you to try and use that technique if you can. So pause the screen now, figure out the answers, and in a moment, I will show you the answers. You can mark your own work. Okay, and here are the answers. So it says there, it says move the digits 2 places to the right when dividing by 100. So if we move our digits 2 places to the right when we're dividing by 100, when we're dividing by 10, like with questions 4, 5 and 6, we only need to move our digits 1 place to the right because we have only got 1 placeholder. So when we're dividing by 10, we're moving 1 column to the right. And when we move 1 column to the right, we are making our number 10 times smaller. And our final brain warm-up for today is one of my favourites. If you're in my class at school, you will know that I absolutely love these, and I sometimes do some silly things to help us remember. So the first question there, in fact, actually, I'd like you to pause and have a go on your own. So if you pause the video, see if you can figure out the answers, and then I'll help you. Okay, so you should now be able to see the answers. And I'm going to tell you a sneaky way that I usually like to remember these things. And this is how we do it in class. And the children sometimes think I'm a little bit silly. So if you're in my class at school and you know what I'm talking about, feel free to join in, shout out. If your parent or carer is there with you and thinking, what are you on about? What is that silly teacher doing on the internet? Maybe you could explain to them. Maybe you could show them why we do all these things. So the first question there is 1/4 add 1/4. And remember, and usually there's a 4 on the bottom and lots of children like to call it a 4th. But the correct mathematical term we use is a quarter. So here I go. I've got 1 finger and 1 finger. So how many fingers altogether? 2 fingers. What is 1 sausage? Add 1 sausage. It's 2 sausages. What is 1 chair? Add 1 chair. It's 2 chairs. What is 1 book? Add 1 book. It's 2 books. So it doesn't matter what the things are. If you have one of them and one of them and you add them together, there's going to be 2 of them. So if 1 TV add 1 TV is 2 TVs, what is 1/4? Add 1/4. Well, it's going to be 2 quarters. So let's try the next question. The next question is 1/5 add 2 fifths. So 1 pencil add 2 pencils is 3 pencils. 1 sausage add 2 sausages is 3 sausages. 1 kitten add 2 kittens is 3 kittens. 1 banana add 2 bananas is 3 bananas. 1 flower add 2 flowers is 3 flowers. So that means that 1/5 add 2 fifths is You're absolutely right, guys. The answer is 3/5. And it doesn't matter what the things are. If you've got one of them and two of them and you add them together, you're going to have three of them. It could be that they are pencils or sausages or bananas or books. If you've got one of them and you've got two of them and you add them together, you're going to have three of them. So the last question, we haven't got sausages, we haven't got books or pencils or flowers, we have got sevenths. It's quite tricky to say, isn't it? So let's go again. Don't be scared to join in. If you have got 3 pencils and 2 pencils and you add them together, you've got 5 pencils. If you've got 3 kittens and 2 kittens and you add them together, you've got 5 kittens. That sounds lovely, 5 kittens, adorable. If you've got 3 toothbrushes and 2 toothbrushes and you add them together, you've got 5 toothbrushes. If you've got 3 chairs and 2 chairs and you add them together, you've got 5 chairs. If you've got 3 children and 2 children and you add them together, it is 5 children. Well done. So if you've got 3 sevenths and 2 sevenths and you add them together, you've got 5 sevenths. It doesn't matter what the things are, whether they're children or sausages or bananas or flowers or pencils or sevenths. If you've got 3 of them and you've got 2 of them and you add them together, you're going to have 7 of them. No, that's a lie. If you've got 3 of them and you've got 2 of them and you add them together, you're going to have 5 of them. Okay, I was going too quickly there. Silly Mrs. Thompson. So we have done our brain warm up for today. Now we're going to go to our lesson. Now, today's lesson, we're going to carry on with our converting units of measure, and we're going to carry on with measures of length. So, centimetres and metres. They're both ways of measuring how long something is. Now, you might remember from yesterday's lesson, I showed you my tape measure. Now, this is something that you might have at home. Don't worry if you don't have one, because you don't need it for the lesson. But my tape measure has got some little lines on it. Can you see? It's a bit like a bendy ruler, but much longer. So this is a metre, and I'm going to show you how long a metre is again. So a metre is the distance between my 2 fingers. Now, it's quite a big distance, isn't it? We talked about metres being a good way of measuring small distances, like when we do our social distancing, for example, we stand 2 metres, don't we, apart. But there is something smaller than a metre. And I'm going to show you, if you look really closely, you have got centimetres on here. Now, a centimetre is the distance between my fingernails there. So it's a much smaller distance. This is the distance that you will see on your ruler at school when you draw straight lines. Now, there are some teeny tiny lines there. They're something called millimetres. We're not going to worry about those today, but if you look at the distance between those big lines there, where my fingers are, that is 1 centimetre. Now, so, again, I can't get through a lesson without telling you a fact about words. You know what I'm like, children. So, cent. The cent part of the word centimetres, you can see I've highlighted it there in red, is actually Latin. So we're talking about swapping between metres and centimetres today. Remember, we talked about conversion yesterday. So converting is when we swap between 2 things. Like when I go on holiday and I swap my euros, my pounds for euros, or I might go to America and I swap my pounds for dollars. So swapping is converting, and we're not going to be doing kilometres today. We're going to be doing centimetres and metres. And today, the cent part of centimetres actually comes from Latin. Latin was the language of ancient Rome, and Rome is the capital of Italy. And they spoke an ancient language called Latin. And that's where we get a lot of our words from today, the Latin language. So just to show you what I mean, here are some pictures of words which contain that cent. This is the same cent that we find in centimetres. So we've got a centipede there. Now, centipedes were thought to have 100 legs. I've never counted the legs of a centipede to check. I think I'd be a bit scared of creepy crawlies. But we've also got the word century, and a century is 100 years. We've also got cent. Now that's a word to do with money, and a cent, we have those in American money, so 100 cents in $1. We also have that with euros, so 100 cents in a euro. So we've got loads and loads and loads of words with this root in cent. You can actually even see some pictures of Roman soldiers there. And the word centurion was a centurion was a Roman commander in the army, and they were thought to be the boss of about 100 soldiers. So there are loads and loads and loads of words with the Latin word root cent in them. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. Now, with all of that talk of cent, the word root cent, you might have seen this coming. That, you know, my tiny little centimetres that I showed you here, that's my 1 centimetre. How many of them do you think there are in a metre? Oh, where's my metre? How many of those centimetres? Well, you are right, boys and girls. You've used your brain, you've used your knowledge of Latin to help you. And there are 100 centimetres in 1 metre. So just like yesterday, we are going to start by using a fact that we know to help us find out some facts that we don't know. So my fact that I know, and you can write this in the top of your book to help you if you want, is, here's my fact that I know. So my fact that I know is that 100 centimetres equals 1 metre. Now, can you see that on there? Now I'm going to add in some more questions and see if you can figure them out. Okay, I'm going to make a little table actually. I think that would look good, wouldn't it? Okay. Okay, so I'd like you to pause the video there. Can you see me? And see if you can figure out the blank spaces. Okay, so you should have had a go at filling in these blank spaces. If you haven't, pause the video quickly because I'm going to show you how I did it. I started with a fact that I know. Now, can you see here I've used doubling. I've doubled 100 to get 200. So if 100 centimetres is 1 metre, 200 centimetres must be 2 metres. Now I'm going to go up another jump. I could add these two together, or I could just follow the pattern. So 3 metres must be 300 centimetres. And 4 metres must be 400 centimetres. Oh, that's a bit wonky, Mrs. Thompson. It's quite tricky to write on a whiteboard like this. So 700 centimetres. Any guesses? 7 metres. Well done. Now this last one is trickier because there's lots, well there's not lots, but there's 1 0, and sometimes that confuses people. But the rule is just the same. We're following the pattern. So 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. We're going up by 100 each time. 600, 700, this one's 700 here. We're going up by 100 each time. So 900 centimetres would be 9 metres, and 10 metres would be 100 more, which is 1,000 centimetres. Okay, now what you can probably spot is that we are timesing by 100. So if we start with our metres and we times it by 100, we get our centimetres. See, that's cent, we're timesing by 100. So that is a quicker method that you can use once you're getting used to this. But for now, we're going to use the method of starting with a fact that we know. But what do we do when it gets a little bit trickier? I've got some questions on the board here, and I would like you to see if you can figure out what the answers are. So pause the video, off you go. Okay, so this is what we do when it gets trickier. We still start with a fact that we know, and our fact that we know is that 100 centimetres equals 1 metre. So, can you see here, when I've gone from 1 metre to half a metre, I've halved, haven't I? I've divided by 2. So that means I'm going to do the same on the other side. So half a metre is 50 centimetres. Okay, and a quarter, well, I've halved again, haven't I? If you think about when we did pizza fractions at school, we cut them in half. Okay, Mrs. Thompson ate half a pizza. A quarter is a half of a half. Okay, so it's half again. I'm going to divide by 2. So I'm going to divide by 2 here. So my 1/4 of a metre is 25 centimetres. It's very important to remember your centimetres at the end, okay? Because otherwise it could be 25 bananas, couldn't it? And that's not right. So we've figured out half a metre. We've figured out a quarter of a metre. What about 3/4? So 1/4 is 25, and 3 lots of that would be 3/4. So it is 75 centimetres. I've done 25 times by 3, and that gave me 75 centimetres. So I'm going to show you how I would like you to figure out some questions in your books today. We're going to use that partitioning method again. As I say, when you get a bit more confident with this, you can do this by pure calculation. So you would be timesing or dividing by 100. But once we get into the swing of things, I'm going to show you how to do this with the partitioning method. Okay, so you can see here on the screen that I have started with 750 centimetres, and I would like to convert it to metres. So I've partitioned it. I've split the number up into 700 centimetres and 50 centimetres. Then I've used the facts that I know to help me with the next step, the converting step. So if I know that 100 centimetres is 1 metre, 200 centimetres is 2 metres, 300 centimetres is 3 metres, I know that 700 centimetres is 7 metres, and you can see that I've written that on there. Then I've gone to my 50 centimetres. Well, if I know that 100 centimetres is 1 metre, then 50 centimetres is half a metre. And you can also write that as a decimal, which would be 0.5 metres. Today, when you do your answers, I don't mind if you use fractions or decimals. You might find fractions a little easier, but it's up to you. So I've figured out, I've done my partitioning, I've changed my centimetres into metres, and then I've added them back together. So I got the answer 7.5 metres or 7.5 metres. So use that information now, guys and girls, to help you with this one. 1,150 centimetres. I'm going to do it on my board, pause the screen, and then I'll show you how I did it. Okay, so mine's a little bit wonky because I did it on my whiteboard, but I'm hoping that you will have a ruler at home or something to help you draw straight lines. So yours will be a lot neater than mine. Okay, so as you can see, I started with my 1,150 150 centimetres. And I did my partitioning. I split it up into easier numbers. So here I split it up into thousands, hundreds and tens. I don't have any units here. My units column is empty. So I started with a fact that I know, and I know that 100 centimetres is 1 metre. And luckily I've got 100 centimetres here. I know that that's 1 metre. And then I looked at the other parts of the question. 100 centimetres, well, I've got 1,000 here, and that is 10 times bigger. It's 10 times bigger. So if, if 100 centimetres is 1 metre, then 1,000 centimetres is 10 times bigger. So my metres are going to be 10 times bigger too. So 1,000 centimetres is 10 metres. So that's 2 parts sorted out. And then I've come to this 50 centimetres. Well, I started with the fact that I knew, again, 100 centimetres is 1 metre. And I did halving. Can you see? 50 is half of 100. So I've halved again. And 50 centimetres, as I know from before, is half a metre. So I've figured out all my metres parts. But I've got 3 numbers here. So I added them back together. And you can see at the bottom that my answer is 11.5 metres or 11.5 metres. You can write it either way. So I've talked for quite a long time now, boys and girls, and it's a good idea for you to have a go at some of these questions on your own. So don't forget, your top tips are: use a fact that you already know, and you've actually written down quite a lot of things in this beginning part of the lesson, so use that to help you. The next thing I want you to do is use your partitioning, your splitting up numbers, to make it easier, and then you're going to convert them, and then you're going to add them back together at the end. You mustn't forget to add them back together, okay? And it's really, really important. The last thing is never forget to write down your units of measure. So don't just write a number at the end. It has to say centimetres or metres. So if you're a bit unsure, you can go back and look at some of the examples that we've just talked about. So I am going to end the video here, and I'm going to show you some questions. We have got red pepper questions like yesterday and chili pepper questions. I want you to have a little go, and I'm going to show each of them on the screen. So when they appear, you need to pause the video dead quick, and then I'm going to show you the answers so you can mark your own work. Don't forget to send photos of your work to us, and we are going to give you dojos for the effort and for trying and for having a really good go. And actually, I've been giving some extra dojos recently because I've noticed that some people's presentation has been incredible. So that could be you as well. Have a wonderful day. Good luck with your independent questions, and I look forward to seeing you all soon. Bye.